Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talking Heartland. This is the show where we like to break down past episodes of Heartland, and we are on season 9, episode 10, 11, and 12. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Michelle is here.
Hey everyone.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Excited to talk about these.
Yeah. All right. Well, we were left on a big cliffhanger last week. And so we got episode 10, Darkness Before the Dawn. And this is Georgie begins to second guess her decision to run away from Heartland while the family bands together to find her. So what did you think overall of this episode? Did you feel like it was a pretty good second episode to the cliffhanger? Follow-up?
Yeah, it felt a little bit disjointed, even though it was like a two-parter. Like I don't know what they could have done, obviously, because it's a family show. They can't have Georgie coming into any sort of harm. But initially I thought it was her brothers that she was going to. Like I really didn't think she would go to Peter. For some reason I just thought it would be her brother. So that did kind of take me out of it a little bit. But I think overall, it was weirdly paced this episode. It felt like Georgie was missing and then Georgie was found him back very quickly.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, she did kind of make the decision to call home out of nowhere just because I guess she didn't have any food. Was seemed to be the big like there wasn't a big emotional kind of journey, it was sort of more there's no food
Yeah.
and then calls.
Yeah, I tried to sort of put myself in that place of like at that age. I think I would have panicked a lot sooner than no food.
Well, and so her plan to go to her dad's, I mean, I guess I'm not sure why she would do that because, I mean, obviously then that would immediately, everybody would know as soon as she went to her dad's or her brother's. I almost would have expected her to go maybe to one of her foster homes or something, you know what I mean? Like something that would be a little bit harder to find out.
Yeah.
But then again, she's a teenager. It's not like she so I mean, maybe it makes sense. But Peter is on vacation, and I guess she didn't know that. Nobody
Yeah.
knew that.
Well, nobody knew that apart from Tori Anderson at the end. Nobody knew that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just found it so unbelievable that a man like Peter, like a businessman with, he's used to working away from home, he's got 2 kids, like to be that unreachable is just, it really beggars belief. It's like,
Yeah, and I feel like you would let people know. I
yeah,
guess he did let the doorman know.
yeah, but you should
But
let Lou know, like in terms of just for the kids in case, there is an emergency, like
yeah,
Katie wanted to call him just to say goodnight or something, like.
right. Yeah, in this day and age, I feel like you need
Yeah.
to kind of be contactable, which was probably the point of the vacation. But I also think even since 2016, I think there's maybe a tiny bit of change in that from 2022. I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like we're a little even more kind of glued to our phones, and there's even more wireless access now than there was, I feel like, in 2016 too.
Yeah. Yeah, I just
So
think
maybe.
just because that was sort of Peter's, like that was sort of a negative thing on his character of like on his phone, like he's always like talking to someone. He's not part of like the family. He's always off on his own doing business calls,
Yeah.
and yeah, it just was like, and also it was like, who's he on vacation with? Just funny.
Also, I would never keep all of my ID and money in one place. Like I would have some in my pockets, some in my backpack, some, just to be safe. Whenever I travel, I always have an ID that's with me, and then also have one in my suitcase, just in case I need. Because if you if you lose your ID, you have to file a, not that she was flying, but I just learned that a while back, I learned that you have to file a police report. And that's the only way that you can get back on a plane is if, at least in the States, is that you have to show your police report to the people. So yeah, that would be a pain.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, Georgie's a teenager. She doesn't have a ton of life experience, but that's what I would have done is just have it in different, have a little bit of my shoe, have it at different places just in case.
And I think even just like as a teenager, like falling asleep in front of a building, like even a teenager, I don't think would do that.
Yeah. Well, and I would also be like very sensitive because I'm a very soft sleeper. So that somebody couldn't take my backpack without me. She seems to sleep through it and doesn't even realize that's been taken.
Yeah.
So and that is a pretty mean person who takes a homeless teen's backpack. That's pretty, because you don't see that and think, oh, there's gonna be big money there.
I thought it was interesting of like Vancouver, it's sort of like this wholesome, especially in media, it's perceived as this sort of like wholesome place, but like in terms of a heartland, like the filming style, it's like all dark and gritty, and I'm like, wow, they're really like tarring Vancouver with this like.
That is true. Even in Hallmark movies, like the big city, don't go to the big city. It's usually Vancouver. That's true. But so then we have the Ty and Amy finding Phoenix. So not only do they have everything going on with Georgie, but we have the problem with the creek, because Phoenix drank some from the creek and it's got all that garbage, including pesticides in there. And this guy, Archie, is up to no good. What did you think about that?
I like the sort of team up of the guys going and sort of dealing with it. It's always good. But yeah, I imagine this thing sort of happens a lot. People just dumping things and sort of, I know it's sort of a problem in Scotland in certain areas of the Highlands of people, offloading rubbish because they don't want to sort of deal with the cost of, getting rid of it officially. And yeah. But yeah, especially when there's like so much wildlife and things about, like you are potentially harming a lot of the wildlife.
Yeah, and especially when you're dealing with something that's illegal.
Yeah, and it's like a pesticide that's like banned, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you're gonna do it, don't leave stuff with your name.
Yeah. Don't leave your electric bill in.
No. And so yeah, this is a pretty simple episode. I feel like there's not that much to talk about, but so Georgie calls Lou, and then Lou goes and she says, everyone was in a complete panic. And Georgie says, I felt trapped. If I didn't run, I wouldn't get out. I felt like I need to escape. But then she says, I promise to never do this again. She talks to Georgie and they go to have sushi. What do you think of Lou's sort of response?
I like Lou's response because I don't think it would have gone over well if she'd sort of went, because she was very much in that last episode of like really hit her limit in terms of like punishment and was at her most low. And I feel like she really took a step back and like calmly addressed it in a way that finally sort of got through to Georgia. And they were able to have an actual conversation, whereas in the previous episode I think that was like the main issue of like they didn't really have a conversation. It was more, it kind of got to a point where Lou was just sort of putting her foot down. But yeah, like you said, there's not much to talk about in this episode. Of like, it felt like the last episode there was all this sort of conflict and build up, and it felt very flat in this episode. Like it was all sort of solved very quickly.
Yeah. I did kind of feel that I mean, I understand her not losing it when she getting upset with
Yeah,
Georgie, because that would not have been productive. But it also felt a little, maybe even too subdued, where,
yeah, and I like the sort of part of, was obviously triggered by something that happened in her past with, being in foster care for so long and sort of bouncing around to different places. And I thought that the sort of Jack conversation was a lot more,
yeah,
um,
I agree.
he was a lot more sort of strict with her.
Mhm.
But it felt like, yeah, this kid should probably talk to someone. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think that this has obviously like triggered something, and you don't know if down the line if something else will do that as well. So yeah, it felt like it was all sort of brushed aside. Whereas, I think the thing that I would have done is like, yeah, this kid needs to talk to someone, not me.
Yeah, I do agree that probably some counseling of some kind would be helpful for everybody involved. Not even just for the runaway, but just the fact your parents are splitting up. I think it would probably be helpful
Yeah, yeah,
to
and
talk
it's sort
about.
of like, but I wasn't clear on, are Lou and Peter actually divorced?
They said separated because she did say, what are you doing, my husband?
Yeah, and she was still wearing a ring, so yeah. So
Hmm.
the end of the episode, that also takes away the fact that like they aren't getting back together.
Hmm.
So I think that would have, been even harder on Georgie. So yeah,
Yeah, but it
mhm.
didn't really make sense to me, because I think in the next episode she says that this isn't the first we're hearing of Sylvia, that she babysit the kids. So are they implying that Peter had an affair?
Yeah, I made a note of that as well. So yeah, he said that he remember when they were talking about sort of custody,
Hmm.
and he had said, I want the girls for, I think it was the whole summer, and he was going to spend a portion of that time with them, and then the rest of the time that they were in Vancouver, they were going to be looked after by someone named Sylvia. I think that's the sort of
Yeah. So
that. Yeah, that
yeah.
was months ago. Yeah,
So that, I mean, they definitely are not leaving with Peter on some kind of high note.
no,
That's for sure.
no, definitely not.
Yeah. And yeah, I did like when Jack says, I hope you never put any of us through something like this ever again. Your running days are over. You're too old for that kind of crap.
Yeah, yeah, that was good from Jack.
Hmm. Because I was surprised that Georgie didn't talk to Jack when
Mhm.
she was spiraling. That seems like the kind of thing that she would do, because they have such a good relationship.
Yeah, and also Georgie was very much in the wrong in terms of like the lies and then lying that she was lying. So she didn't really have she didn't
Yeah.
really have any sort of creds. So like even if she'd went to Jack, like he wasn't going to be on her side on that, and I think maybe a part of her knew that.
Yeah, maybe. And but she thought that Peter would be, which I think is strange. but yeah, so this was a little bit anticlimactic. But glad to see her be safe. And in the whole thing with Archie Buchanan was kind of a nice counterbalance, when you've got Caleb punching him in the face. That's pretty good.
Good than Kayla's punching someone.
Hmm. You also have the cuddly night between Amy and Ty. That was pretty cute.
Yeah, they've been so like there's been no conflict with Amy and Ty this
No,
season. Yeah, there's been none.
none. Well, I mean, the most was the dinner party, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's about it. So what would you give this one to 10, this episode?
Yeah, I would give this a 7.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. 6.5, 7, something like that. We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies Podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
All right. So then we have episode 11, and this is called Making the Grade. And it's Ty gets roped into helping Jack and Tim on a cattle drive, but an unforeseen accident jeopardizes their plans. They should never take Ty anywhere.
Yeah, I was worried about him this entire time.
Yeah. But in this case, it's Jack who gets hurt in this one. Gets hit by a tree.
Yeah, they're probably saying we can't give Ty another head injury. I'll give it to Jack.
Yeah, only one per season. But Ty and Amy are planning a weekend away, and Tim wants them to join the cattle ride, and for Ty to join the cattle ride. It's kind of a rite of passage, sort of. And I guess he wasn't on the big one that they took they took Lou's friend from New York. Remember that one? Mm-hmm. The big cattle ride. I guess Ty wasn't on that one.
Can't remember. And there was a lot more people for that one. I thought it was interesting that it was just 3 of them, and I think it's the same cattle. Like,
right? Yeah, that's true. And Georgie is ignoring Peter's calls. She's mad at him, and that's, I guess, somewhat understandable given that he wasn't there. And so then the whole thing with Sylvia. So Georgie tells Amy about Sylvia, and then Amy talks to Lou about it. And then Amy gets help from Lou with decorating her place, and she has a new chair, and this is very exciting.
This was a lot of like the whole plot around arranging a chair in such a small room. There's only so many places you can put it.
Right.
We made a night of it.
Yeah, you need an expert. I mean, it did look like a comfy chair.
Yeah. But of all of the things of like Lou being at sort of a loose end and not having anything to do of, like, there's so many things. You live on a ranch, so I'm sure there's like a dozen things that you could do to keep yourself busy, but no, it's rearranging a chair in the room.
Well, and it was funny when he's like, you're like, Grandpa, you hate change. I'm like, getting a new chair? Like that's really extreme. Hating this new change.
My gosh.
I mean, especially because she just got married. That's a lot more change. But Lou is giving her big time advice. And she's telling Amy all of the pitfalls of marriage and everything. She says, oh, you're still in the honeymoon phase. It gets harder. Trust me. And then Amy is like, who are you to lecture me? Which is actually true. But that doesn't mean that Lou doesn't have something to teach her.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's that whole thing. And I think that's something probably pretty common actually with people that are divorced, is they not only do they want to kind of protect their friends, but I think they just feel like a need to just share their, to let it out, which is normal. But from the people that are married, I understand, especially freshly married, Amy's reaction too, to being like, don't bring that negative energy onto my marriage.
Yeah. And there is this sort of, especially within the show and sort of within the fans of like Ty and Amy are like soulmates, they're perfect for each other, from episode 1. So they are sort of a bit of a fairy tale. Whereas I don't think anybody sort of felt that way about Lou and Peter. That was always a sort of a struggle of a relationship. So I can imagine the fans being quite, torn on
Oh my
this.
gosh, can you imagine? Well, I mean, we already know spoiler for season 14, that I already know what happens, but that's the only way you're going to get the two of them apart.
Yeah, for real.
But so we have Adam and Georgie in the corn maze, and he's super cocky. He's like, we don't need a map. We don't need, like, I don't understand why you wouldn't want a map. Like, there's nothing like embarrassing about using a map. It's not like that's like the kiddie way. So it's not the kiddie lanes and bowling. But have you ever done a corn maze?
I haven't. I think that would really scare me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. I think it would just, especially if it was at night, that would absolutely terrify me. But yeah, if I was with like a group of people, probably okay. But I would definitely feel very isolated and trapped.
Well, I mean, most of the time there's a lot of people there, so you really don't stay lost long if you're lost in the corn maze, and they're not that hard.
Well, he was making it sound like it was an equation, and I was like, what's going on with this kid? I don't understand.
I mean, he was making it harder than it needed to be.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I did like the line, oh, so you're Hansel and Greteling it. That's good.
But a plan.
Yeah. Do you think that Adam and Georgie have chemistry?
Absolutely not.
I agree. They don't. Not feeling it. I liked Steven much better.
Yeah.
And Georgie.
I mean, obviously, like we've said since the beginning, it's good to have some sort of representation of, other actors of color on the show. So I'm glad he's there. I'm glad he's part of the show, but I'm not a fan of the actual storyline that they've given him. I feel like they're sort of making him. I don't really get the character yet, so I'm hoping that will become clearer.
Yeah. And then we also have Lou saying that everything would be different if the Hanley house had come through.
That's a stretch.
Yeah. I mean, Amy basically says that, but because that the Hanley house was a sign of their dysfunction.
I
mean, it was a sign of the fact that she didn't even ask him about it.
He didn't even want to live.
No. And he would still be in Vancouver. Most of the time. It'd just be, I mean, if anything, I feel like the Hanley house would have been worse.
Yeah, she'd been on her own. Yeah.
Yeah, because she wouldn't have had the support of everybody at Heartland. And that's what she thinks. And then Katie is off for her first sleepover, which is pretty young. What are you? She 5?
Yeah, I think it makes sense that it's with Lisa.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's with her grandmother, essentially, so I think that's probably fine. But yeah, I imagine if it was like other kids and that was way too young.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot it was with Lisa. But yeah, so Lou is already empty nesting herself.
Bit dramatic.
When you just have a preschooler, it's probably a little early.
Yeah.
It's like there was one, did you watch Open by Christmas this Christmas season? That one.
Who was in it?
Erica Durance and Brendan Elliott and Allison Sweeney.
Oh yeah. Watch that one.
I didn't care for it. And one of the things I didn't like about it was Erica Durance's character, and she had a 14-year-old, and she kept saying,
oh yeah,
he's almost leaving the house. And I'm like, in 3 years. What? You're gonna be this way for 3 years? Like, if it was 6 months or a year, I guess I could see it a little bit, but it's just, that's not healthy.
I didn't understand. I thought he was like going to like boarding school, or he was going like it's like or he's going to college in 3 years.
And she was so mad that he wouldn't get his picture taken with Santa Claus. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Especially at 14. There is no way that I would have done that. No way. It was not her character. I did not like it. So now Lou's taking this to an even more of an extreme. She gonna be mad that Georgie doesn't want her picture taken with Santa? I think so.
Yeah, they ever did with Peter.
Right, that's true. Tim says, he's got to earn his stripes.
Fully qualified vet, I think he's like.
He's only lived with your family for since he was a teenager. Oh, it's funny. But they make Ty set up the camp, including the tent, and then Tim sleeps outside. And why didn't they just bring a second tent?
Because Tim wanted to sleep in the van with the mattress.
Oh yeah.
He wanted to trick Ty into sleeping in the tent with a snoring Jack.
Yeah, and so then the Longhorn gets lost again, and Jack goes out, and then he gets hit by this tree that flings towards him, and he gets hit off the horse, and he's unconscious. And then luckily they're able to find him and able to help him. And he says, the worst thing is I lost my favorite hat. So
it is.
Yeah. And then we have Amy showing Ty the new chair.
Oh my God, this chair.
Yeah. It's very cozy.
After getting like a whole plot to itself.
Yeah. Well, and then there's this conversation between Georgie and Lou that Georgie says, I don't want to stop being tutored from Adam. And then Lou says, maybe you have feelings for him. And I feel like that is a very bold statement for a mother to make. Like, most teenagers would be like, no, I don't. Leave me alone. What are you talking about? I would never have admitted to something like that. To having a crush on somebody, to my mother? No way. That'd be embarrassing.
Yeah, it just felt, this whole thing feels so forced.
Yeah. So then Georgie answers the call from Peter, and Ty finds Jack's hat. So he saves the day. Got some foot rot and a hat, and you're in. 10 years of friendship, that helps too. So what would you give this one 1 to 10?
I'll give this one an 8.
Yeah, I think this one was pretty decent. So yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, last episode is called The Real Deal. And this one, let's see here. The last one is called The Real Deal. And this one is when Jade thinks about accepting a shady sponsorship deal, Tim asks for Amy and Georgie's help to talk her out of it. So this one, the thing about it that I thought was a little bit strange is that they have this person be a friend of Tim's, and he's the one that gets the sponsorship. So I don't know why he thought this was a good idea even to begin with, and I feel like he changed so quick to being like, whoa, this guy's shady, don't want to work with him, I don't know. I thought that was a little bit weird. Like why did he introduce her to her in the first place?
Yeah, I feel like you have to sort of do a few sort of um you have to jump through a few hoops to sort of understand this storyline and sort of get okay with it, because yeah, I agree, it just sort of doesn't make sense. You can sort of justify it by saying, Jade's is the first sort of female Bronco rider apparently. Never, they've never sort of he's never really coached before. He has daughters, so maybe he is feeling a bit maternal towards her,
I mean, I
and
would think
maybe
he would talk to Casey about this. Isn't that what she
yeah,
does?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's her whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
So
think
yeah,
that he would want maybe her sponsors or talk to people that she's known who have been good to work with, or worked with people that are friends of hers. And but he was evidently very confident in this guy, but evidently this guy treats, maybe that's the problem, is that he just known this guy for how he treated his male
hmm
um male sponsees versus the female, but he's evidently not interested in supporting her career at all he cares about is her as a model, which I feel like you could have lots of models. Why would you need Jade in particular?
yeah, yeah. It's a very strange, especially because they never even saw her ride a Bronco. So
Yeah.
by all accounts, she could be terrible. You know.
Yeah. I mean, and she's beautiful, of course, but I feel like not like so beautiful that like it would surpass all else. You know what I mean?
hmm Yeah,
She's not
and
like a
also like
supermodel.
yeah, and Caleb's a good-looking guy. They could certainly market him in a way of like
Mhm.
appealing to like a younger
Yeah.
demographic or
Well, especially now that he doesn't have the mullet hair.
yeah.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good. We also have Cassandra going to Heartland and working on trouble with some acupuncture on the horse. And so she starts talking to Amy, and Amy's a little bit kind of rude.
hmm
Amy says, "You don't have to go out of your way to hang out with me, Cassandra." And basically, Cassandra says, like, I don't really have any friends. And we know from a previous episode that Amy says that she never really had a lot of friends, that she always just kind of had one friend,
Yeah.
that she tells Georgie that. And so I guess, the idea that Cassandra says, people, we need friends. And I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me.
hmm
So
Yeah. I did
um
sort of note down in the beginning of the episode, like, it's a bit of a red flag that Amy is so bored without Ty. Like, her whole life is wrapped up in Ty. So yeah, definitely hope that even if I don't know how long Cassandra's in the show, but if they don't build a friendship with her, like they at least bring other people sort of into the fold. Because that girl definitely needs friends.
yeah, I mean, I think it's true. You need friends and uh companionship aside from just your spouse. Looks like she was on the show until 2019. Her last major season was 2017. So she's in at least one full season after this.
That's good.
Yeah. So she can have a friend for a little while at
She can have a
least.
friend for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I have a lot of friends, but I guess my two best friends are my friends that I go see a lot of movies with. My friend Stanford and then my friend Jen. Um, and so we hang out quite a bit, and but I don't know, it's different. I feel like when you're older versus when you're Amy's age, as far as friendship, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Hmm.
we can have one sort of best friend from from primary school all the way through secondary school, and we're still friends now. And then I have like a couple of friends that I see like a few times a month. But honestly, the people that I talk to mostly are, people online. And I
Yeah.
absolutely consider them my friends. I've met them
Yeah.
maybe once or twice at conventions and things like that, but I would absolutely consider them be close friends.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I haven't actually met any of the co-hosts for the podcast except for Amy, and I consider all of them very close friends.
Yeah.
All of them. So all right. Well, so in this episode we have Ty and Scott are at a conference. So that's why Cassandra is coming over and trying to help. We also have Jack with this super old phone, and his phone looked, I guess it was a flip phone, but it was more, I think it was Katie's phone. One of their phones just looked so big.
Yeah, I've put a note down of like, Jack is my dad with a smartphone.
Yeah.
His phone, he sort of had to get a new one. I said new one. He got a new one recently, and it still has Snake on it. That game Snake. It was like one of the first games that you ever got on
Oh yeah.
Nokia. Yeah, it's horrific. And he does have a smartphone, but he doesn't have it in terms of like texting and things like that. Yeah, I don't understand it. He's good with a PC, but yeah, not with smartphones. Just has an ancient
I
phone.
just got an iPhone for the first time this week, and it's challenging. It's like a whole new game.
Yeah.
It's so small compared to my Android was nice and big, and like, oh no, what did I do?
I had one for a while and went back to Android. It was just too complicated.
I know. Yeah. So we have this whole thing with Jade. We find out Jade is 18 and she can make the decision. So she signs a contract with this guy. She gets there, and not only does he not want to see her ride, but again, basically just being a model, wants her to wear the Daisy Dukes and everything like that. And so then we get Caleb coming out in the outfit instead of Jade. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. I think, Kerry James doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah.
He's such a delight, like even just on like social media and things like that. He just seems like a lovely guy, and yeah, he's like up for a laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Throughout this whole show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that was fun. And Tim says, you just wanted her to be one of your cowboy Bronco girls, and you didn't care about her. And I guess she's able to get out of the contract. So that's good.
Yeah, that's good. That would have been really bad.
Yeah. We also have Lou, who is doing online dating, but avoiding it by making a spreadsheet of all of the possible matches. And I guess she must have a better version of like Tinder than I have, because she gets so many people that are potential matches.
Well, did you see
Maybe
the
I'm
picture,
too picky.
Rachel?
I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, you need a picture like Lou's.
Yeah.
Business.
I'm swiping left too much, I think, is the problem. But Jack says, well, it looks like you are just you're just putting things off. You're setting the bar so high. It might be your way of avoiding an actual date. Because she has to remember that somebody has to want to be with her too. She's looking for the perfect guy. Well, she's not perfect. So start. But I have to say, if Kevin McGarry came up in my swipe, in my picks or whatever matches, I would definitely swipe right. I mean,
yeah, I think the whole population would, regardless of gender.
Yeah.
All swipe right.
Yeah, that's very true. I think so. And this is an introduction of Mitch, which we know, he goes on to, he's still on the show to this day.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised. He was a little bit of a jerk.
Yeah,
Were you
yeah.
surprised?
I'm surprised. They've got to do the enemies to lovers thing, Rachel. That's Heartland's thing.
I guess so, with Lou especially.
Yeah.
But he tries to kiss her on the first date.
That was weird.
It was weird. It was like they were walking. It wasn't like they had like stopped and were looking into each other's eyes. It was like,
Yeah,
it was a weird kiss.
Wasn't even like a moment.
Yeah. It wasn't. And I was so surprised. I really thought that his entrance into the show was going to be more swoon-worthy than this.
Maybe they hadn't seen him in Hallmark movies. Well, I don't think he'd done a Hallmark movie at this point.
No, I don't think so. Because this was 2016, and I think Walking the Dog was his first one, I believe. Let me check.
The first thing I saw him in was the amazing Winterfest one, which is.
He was in that with the Winter Maze. Let's see here. Oh, you mean the Inn one, the Ice Inn?
Yeah, I think it was the Inn one.
Oh, okay, yeah. I hated that maze one. It was so bad. He was on this show, and then was on Love at First Spark, and then A Song for Christmas. I think A Song for Christmas was actually the first one that I ever saw with him, because Love at First Spark was in the spring, and we didn't start doing the podcast 2017 until August. So I had to watch that one later. But yeah, that's when we first got to see it. Song for Christmas was, and I remember thinking, oh, this guy is very charming and very handsome.
Have you spoken to him?
Yes, yeah, we've interviewed him. We tried to get him before this new season. We haven't had any luck yet. But yeah, I've interviewed him twice, and he is great. He's doesn't take himself too seriously, super nice, very friendly. But yeah, both him and Chris McNally are both super nice. You can ask for better in your love triangle, all the Hardys. You can ask for nicer guys. They're very, very, very friendly. So, and so then Jade apologizes to Georgie because she was kind of a diva. And then she says, I never want to be that much of a diva when I'm a trick riding star. Georgie says. And they're worried about one of the horses. I forget which one, but anyway, one of the horses in the tricks is having a problem with the water trick. And so Amy and Georgie are working through that. And they end up getting it at the end. What did you think? Did you laugh when she is when Lou's going through all the potential guys, and he likes Nickelback?
I feel so bad for that. Like, I don't know why there's certain bands that just get so much hatred of, like, you can't possibly like Nickelback. I'll try to think of other ones, but it's like you just, for whatever reason, like Coldplay is another one of like, oh, that's such a red flag if you like that band.
Yeah, I don't know what they did. Nickelback did. I was like, they were on the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack, and then that was the tipping point for everybody.
I think it's just the idea of them being like sort of a wholesome Canadian rock band, whereas rock bands tend to be, they want the bad boys, but they're just like wholesome Canadian guys.
Yeah. So that made me laugh. That anybody, they can like whatever music they want. That is not a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
As long as they let me like whatever I like, that's the only
because
thing.
it's some kind. I really don't care.
Yeah,
you really shouldn't care.
Yeah. So then we have them tearing up the contracts. I did think that It was a little bit funny when Jack keeps butt dialing.
Yeah, that was so funny.
And he said chest bad pain instead of check backpack.
He's like, what's autocorrect?
Yeah. And it was a pretty good moment at the end with all of the Heartland women on the horses.
That was like squad goals at the end.
Mm-hmm. It was. Yeah. So there we go. I would give this one an 8, I think. It was pretty fun.
I'll give it an 8.5. The 5 is for Kevin McGarry.
Yeah. Except for he was such a jerk.
But I'm prepared to forgive him if he's nice and nice.
Very good. All right, we did it. We talked about all 3 of these episodes. Let us know what you think of these episodes. Are they favorites of yours? Love to hear your thoughts. And Michelle, how can people find you?
On Twitter at Michelle R. Benson.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check that out. And also make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. That helps us so much. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We also have our Patreon group and merch store, which has some Heartland inspired merch. Please take a look at that. We'd be so grateful. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.